Good evening. My name is Dr. Sidney Freeman Jr., and I'm so excited to be in conversation with Pastor Michelle Mota tonight to talk about a tough topic that we've been discussing with several other leaders within the Adventist faith regarding decolonizing the Black Adventist mind. And without further ado, I'll bring on Pastor Mota. Pastor Mota, how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. We've been having some great conversations over the last few days about decolonizing the Black Adventist mind. Would you mind just sharing a little bit about yourself to kind of give the audience an introduction to who you are?
Sure. So, my name is Michelle Mota. I go by Pastor Michelle because I was born into the pastoral family of Curcio and Goida Mota. I'm a Dominican born by via New York. So, I was born in the Bronx in New York and I was raised in Miami. So, the joke is I was Miami made. But I definitely don't claim Florida though. So I was raised in Miami, moved around a lot. I've lived in Tennessee. I've lived in Michigan, where I did my graduate studies at Andrews University in the seminary there. And I am the first and only female pastor of the Southwest Region Conference in Texas. Covers Texas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, New Mexico, and Arkansas. And I am also now, as of June 2019, the first female commissioned as well. So
Wonderful.
yeah,
Congratulations. It's always
thank
something
you.
to be a trailblazer, but I know you're opening up doors for others, next generation. But we hope even in your generation that more uh, women pastors can be of service to our church.
For sure.
Yes. So, why I wanted you specifically to come and to share on tonight is because we've, speaking to other panelists and other leaders, we've focused in on Afro Caribbean. We've focused on ways of decolonizing the mind of those from the continent and of course North America. However, we have not looked at what it would take or what it would look like to decolonize the minds of those who are identify as Afro Latino or Afro Latinx. Could you talk to us a little bit about do you first think what does decolonizing the Black Adventist mind mean to you? And then what does that mean within the cultural context of being Afro Latinx?
So let me say this. There's a key word in what you're saying, and that's the word black. And I think the very first step that needs to be done by Hispanics like me is to accept our ancestry the way that it is. It's very complicated. I mean, I was, obviously in getting ready for this, I have read countless of articles and blogs, Black Like Me, and comedians make fun of Dominicans. Dominicans are black and be like, I'm not black, and all this stuff. And to understand why there is such an aggressive desire to disassociate Hispanics from blacks, it's an enormous job. And so I think the first step is to recognize that we are black and what that really means and how our colonizers have made being black being bad or disrespecting even to the point of where our origins are from and adopting a new origin that was never intended to be yours, but they allow you to keep it so that they could continue segregation of the mind. So
Wow.
the reason why I believe decolonizing blacks is so important is because we don't want to recognize as Latinos that we are in that place of Blackness as well. That a lot of us, if you put us in a lineup with mouths closed, unable to speak, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between one and another. And, we like to think, well, our hair is curlier, or our hips are shaped different, or we have a little bit more European features. And I, sit there and I'm like, because they raped our women. Like, it's not
Yeah.
because, it was like a gift from the gods, like this idea of straight hair being beauty, and narrow noses, and these are things that I have had to wrestle with. The color of my skin was something I had to wrestle with. And of course, the other part of that, Doc, is that Blacks and African Americans, and even Africans like from the continent, have to also embrace the fact that Latinos are going to struggle with this because of what it means to be Black to us. It's
Wow.
specifically Dominicans, and in coming to the realization that anti-Blackness is not anti-Africanness necessarily, it's anti-Haiti. So
Yes.
so for me
Yes.
to say I am not Black is me simply saying I'm not Haitian, I'm Dominican. And that those cultural wars, those blood wars, the massacre that happened in Dominican Republic against Haitians, and we could talk about that in a little bit, but
Yeah.
to just get it going, I really want to make it clear that it's not that I don't think that Hispanics are just disgustingly naive to know that our color of skin does not originate in Spain. They know that.
Right.
But it's the idea of, do I want to be recognized as part of my colonizer's country? And that is what makes the difference for them. And so anything that has to do with them, we don't want a part of. So if we could just claim to be Hispanic, and I remember being a kid and my dad was doing the census and he checked Hispanic as
Hmm.
the ethnicity. Obviously, that's
Hmm.
the ethnicity box. Then the race box, he left blank
Wow.
because we're not white, right? But then
Hmm.
for him to have checked Black, that would mean that I could have been a Haitian, descendants of Haitians, and that's just a no-go. So it's crazy to be part of, being born on one side of the island towards another would create a completely different identity that we still struggle with today.
That's amazing. As I think about, maybe I don't know if it was 3 years ago when you were hearing a lot about in the Dominican Republic that dark skinned people in the Dominican Republic were being killed and being brutalized and things like that. And it was like, wow, they're right next to Haiti. It's right there. So that's interesting that you're giving me, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers further context for that. So as you're saying that first they must, how do we work through that messiness? That's help me, like, how do we work through that messiness?
Seriously murky water. Like, there's
Yes.
no clean class. If you dip your cup into what the Dominican Haitian relations are, you're gonna pull up a murky glass of water, and literally you'll pull it up from the Massacre River.
Wow.
Trujillo, he was one of our dictators that we had. And by the way, I want to point this out, that the same way that Haiti's dictator, their worst one, Duvalier, by the way, supported by American leaders, presidents. It was done the same way with Dominican Republic. Trujillo was a dictator who was of origin Black, right?
Hmm.
But he put makeup on his face to be lighter. And he went as far as killing all of the Black Haitians that were towards the border, and he dumped their bodies into the Massacre River. And that river is still very prominent today. And they dumped bodies of over 20,000 Black because he was trying to completely eliminate Blackness from our island. He was trying to, and it's funny, when I was getting married, when I had my first marriage, the joke in my family, because I was marrying a Haitian, was you have to aclarar la raza, which literally means lighten up the race. So if you get married to somebody darker, you're going to darken the race. And the goal of Hispanics to keep our identity is to lighten up.
Wow.
So it's crazy how it's embedded into you from childhood. Now, of course, you see me. I am very much not white.
Hmm.
And being a Hispanic in Miami was probably one of the most confusing times of my life because Miami Hispanics are mostly the ones that I was in school with were white colored
Hmm.
Hispanics. So they were
Hmm.
Cubans and they were white and they would treat me like I was an African American. Like, you're black. And to be black meant to be uneducated, to be poor, to be a Haitian. And I was like, I am not black. And I would fight it tooth and nail. Like, no, I am not black. And I'd go home and my parents were like, no, you're not black. And my mother is very fair skinned. My
Hmm.
father is darker. And so it was crazy to me because growing up, being black was like an omen. You did not want to be associated with blackness in any way, shape, or form. Fast forward, years later, I mean, even wearing wigs was called extensions. Wearing weaves, extensions. We don't wear weaves because that's a black thing. Just even the way that you called yourself, you are not an Afro Latina because you cannot trace your African roots. You're Hispanic, period, point blank. And that's something that was embedded in me. Yet my African American and black friends would tell me, you're not one of us. You're an
Right.
imposter. I literally got called an imposter when I was in college. One of my friends, jokingly, who was African, said to me, "You're an impo." And that was his nickname for me. So I struggled with identity my whole life till I got to Oakwood. And when I got to Oakwood, I was sitting at a table with some friends, and the girl that was talking to me, she was light skinned black, and she's like, "So, how does it feel to be black and Latina?" And I was like, "I'm just Latina." She's like, "Where?" And I was like, wait a minute. Wait, you're not going to come in here guns blazing. She's like, you need to educate yourself. She's like, you Dominicans are some of the most ignorant people that I know. And she was like, blazing, blazing, blazing. And I was like, whoa, 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 whoa. But that shock was what was necessary for me to be able to find out who I was and to be able to accept that if I kept my mouth closed and walked out on the streets, no one would be none the wiser. They would not assume I was Latina. They would not assume. They would just say to me, wow, you're a black woman with really, really nice curly hair. That's what they would say. But they would never disassociate blackness from me because it's who I am. And I think that Latinos, we do ourselves a disservice because we end up trying to be white, but they don't accept us.
Hmm.
And then our black brothers won't accept us because they're like, well, you've rejected us for so long. Now we reject you. And it's like, so where do we go?
So you brought up Oakwood, and it begs the question: how does this play out in the church? So you've just been talking about it from
A
just
social,
regular
yeah,
cultural,
yeah,
but does that play out in the church?
absolutely. I am the only female pastor in my conference. And yet, if you ask me how many times I have been invited to speak in the Hispanic churches of my conference, the answer is zero. I've been here since 2014.
Whoa.
Okay. I got hired and officially assigned a church in 2016, but I will not be accepted by my Latino brethren and it's not because I'm black, it's because I'm a woman. They would be more open if I was a male, even if I am black, to come into their churches and preach. But as a woman, I am absolutely not allowed. I am not treated as an equal. I am not treated with respect as a pastor because the Latino culture does not accept female pastors for the most part.
So so this whole decolonizing the mind is not just in the context of race. We also have to decolonize our minds as it relates to gender
Patriarchy.
in the church and patriarchy. Yeah, because so could you give us, just some, don't give us all you got because we got to save some for tomorrow. But can you just give us just a couple points of ways that someone, if they were to ask you, what are some beginning steps to kind of decolonize my mind in regards to, religion and all that good stuff? Could you give us maybe a couple points?
Yes. So I actually wrote it down. So pardon me for looking down at this one, but I
No,
actually
you're
wrote it
fine.
down and I read it on someone else's page and I said, man, if this isn't the reality of what we need to do. It says colonial paradigms would have us believe that people were not civilized or cultured until they came across whiteness.
Hmm.
They were not educated until they came across English, Franco, Spanish, or Dutch, and were not spiritual until Christianity. That's what we need to unlearn. We
Wow.
have so many negative attributes to words that describe who we are. And I think the very first step in decolonizing is rewriting those definitions for yourself, taking
Hmm.
away the power of whiteness that they have said the black man is this or the black woman is this. She is beaten in society. She is not an educated individual. She definitely can't be a pastor. She definitely can't run a home. She can't run a business. And all these negative stereotypes about women, about black men, those need to be rewritten, Sydney. If we're going to do this work for real,
Hmm.
you have to stop and think about why these kind of conversations even make you cringe in the first place.
Right.
Once you can at least admit to yourself that, hey, I have a problem because I have allowed someone else to tell me how much I can contribute to my culture, how much I can contribute to society. Once you remove those negative stigmas, then any kind of unification process can begin, knowing that you are going to reach adversity and you are going to have to confront the biggest person, which is you.
Right.
You are your biggest opponent. And for me to sit there and say, Michelle, you're black, that took everything in me to sit with that, to fight it, and to fight the idea that black is only one thing or black is only one group of people, or if I say that I'm black, that automatically means I'm a Haitian, and a Haitian was the oppressor of the Dominicans and I don't want to be associated with them, so I don't want to be black. No, that's not what being black is. Being black is greatness. And once you start to get to that place of recognizing the beauty in blackness, the beauty and what it means to be colored, the gift of coloring is what I call it. Once you can sit with that and say, God gave me something that he gave his chosen children years ago and that he continues to give me today. Once we can do that, I think that's the start of the right path.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Well, so you said the gift of the color or blackness. Can you? I can't just go past that. Could you talk about that?
We are probably the most mimicked society. If we agree, I mean, they do everything like us. They want our music, they want our fashion, they want even the appropriations have been insane. I
Hmm.
mean, people have completely taken all that we are, our strength, the beauty of our culture, and have tried to appropriate it for them and then say they created it.
Right.
So to me, that's the beauty of the gift of color. It's the gift that I am the color of my ancestors. I believe that Adam and Eve were created on sand that was not white. That dirt was not white. And I remember, very quickly, I want to say this thing. I remember being a kid and watching one of those creation videos, cartoons. And I remember that they shaped in the ground, rightfully so, a brownish, reddish creature. But when God breathes his spirit into it, it awakens and it's white. I'll never forget it. So I was like, so on the ground, they're black, but when they have the breath of God, they're white. And that's exactly what's been propagated throughout Christianity.
Yeah.
That to be white is to be right. That Jesus was white. That everything centers around this beautiful color that we didn't get. No, our gift is the gift of color.
Wow.
Our gift is that we were like our ancestors.
Thank you for unpacking that for us. So, what do they have? What does our audience have to look forward to tomorrow?
The history of why Hispanics believe the way they believe, and what we're doing and working on to beautify ourselves and to accept that Black is beautiful and to move forward in terms of how do you erase history while respecting it, but moving forward towards where God has intended us to go as Christians.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Pastor Michelle, for taking this time out to share with our audience this evening. And we look forward to each of you to share with your friends, loved ones, and everyone you know. Share that we're going to have a special event tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But we're going to be talking further about decolonizing the Black Adventist mind. On the panel will be Dr. Ty Douglas. He's actually going to be streaming in from the beautiful island of Bermuda. And then we'll also have Pastor Jeremiah Sapolin, Miss Claudia Allen, Pastor Lawrence Souffrant, and yes, again, Pastor Michelle Mota. So we thank you for being with us this evening, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Have a wonderful evening.